What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for bearing with me this week while I was super sick and couldn't do a true film room episode. But to make it up for you, I got all my week 4 picks today. Before I do that, though, I want to go back to week 3 and just the absolute shit show that was. I went into week 3 with a 20-11 record, a 65% hit rate, which is not bad. I was hoping for 75%, but 65 isn't terrible. And then pretty much everybody lost that I thought was going to win. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I went 7-9. I'm now at 57% on the season. But I guess making myself feel better, everybody got all the games wrong last week. I mean, it was just upset city. But, I mean, man, it was brutal. It kind of reminded you, though, of why you love the NFL. Because any team can win on any given week, even if you don't expect it. And on that given weekend, pretty much nothing that was expected happened. I mean, even there was a couple teams that should have lost that won, that were projected to win. Like the Patriots barely winning against the Texans, the Packers being able to pull it out against the Bengals. I mean, it was already upset city, but it could have been even worse for a lot of these quote unquote great teams in the NFL that are kind of highly ranked and all that. But man, I that's why I love the league, is because anybody can win at any given time. And it's what makes these picks so difficult, precarious, I guess you can say, is because you never really know what's going to happen. We can only make educated guesses. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a whole bunch of educated guesses, I guess we'll call it, and try to kind of revive my pick rate this week, because last week was just terrible. But moving on, first game of the week, it already happened, but I predicted the Packers would win. They won. It was probably the easiest call I'll make all week because it's the Packers at home. They're playing against a Bears team that just can't get out of their own way. Obviously, Mike Glennon is no longer the starter for that reason. And we're starting the Mitchell Trubisky era in Chicago. So hopefully that goes a lot better than the Mike Glennon era, however short-lived it was. But the Packers still prove they're an elite team, led by an elite offense, led by an elite quarterback, and they're going to be in the mix well into the playoffs, like they always are. Because that's what happens when you have an elite quarterback, is you're a Super Bowl contender every single year, and that has not changed. Next game, New Orleans at Miami. This is the early game, the London game, very bright and early, especially for me on the West Coast. It's like 6:30 in the morning. But I'm going to chalk up that loss last week for the Dolphins up to a division game on the road with a quarterback who was making his second career start with the team. You know, sometimes just shit happens, you know. The Dolphins are still a very talented team offensively. I think they match up well with the Saints defense. They've got that big post-up weapon in Devontae Parker. They have a shifty slot weapon in Jarvis Landry. They have a punishing runner in Jay Ajayi, who also doubles as that kind of mismatch weapon in space as a receiver. And keep in mind that this is a London game, which is Ajayi's home turf. This is just a thought process that I subscribe to. Never, ever discount a player coming into their hometown and taking over a game. It happens all the time, whether it's Odell Beckham having a career game in New Orleans or Derrick Henry running over the Jags in Jacksonville. The hometown effect is something I absolutely believe in, and I think Jay Ajayi will take over this game, and he will win it for the Dolphins. It may be a little bit superstitious, like I said, but it's one of those few football superstitions that I actually truly believe in. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm putting all my eggs in the Ajayi basket this week. I think he's going to get them the win. Next game, Carolina visiting New England. The Patriots are still the Patriots. They win. It's what they do. It doesn't matter if they're down by 5 points with less than 2 minutes on the clock, or if they take a lead in the first quarter and never give it back. They just win. And as long as Tom Brady is still playing quarterback for this team, I don't think I'm ever going to pick against them again. And I don't think anybody would blame me for that either. Tom Brady is Tom Brady because he makes it impossible to bet against him. So put me down for the Patriots here. They're going to start the year 3-1, while Carolina will go 2-2. Moving on to the Jets hosting Jacksonville. The Jaguars, I mean, my God, they look vicious this season. Even if Blake Bortles doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence in the offense on a week-to-week basis, this Jags defense is so incredibly disruptive and physical and opportunistic that I think they can carry this team to a surprising amount of wins this season. The Jets offense is not very good to begin with, and now that they have to go against this Jacksonville defense, I'm not sure they're even going to be able to score double-digit points in this game. The Jags defense is just that good and that deep and that balanced. Trust me. I don't remember the last time Jacksonville started the year 3-1, which is what I think is going to happen this week, but it's probably a pretty damn long time ago, so this is a long time coming for Jags fans. Next up, we got the one team that beat the Jags, Tennessee, going to Houston for another divisional matchup. And I just want to say that I will fully admit that I'm making this pick more with my heart than with my brain. The Titans have an excellent chance to win this game, and logically speaking, it's not really a bad pick to go with them. They've got some good pass rushers in the front seven, which can take advantage of a really bad Houston offensive line. They've got a bruising running attack with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. It just makes sense to go with them. But Deshaun Watson has already proven that he can defy the logical pick. Rookie quarterbacks do not go into Foxborough and go blow for blow with Tom Brady for 4 straight quarters. Rookie quarterbacks don't ever beat Bill Belichick. But Watson did, or at least he did until the defense gave the game away in the last minute. He beat the New England Patriots until the other half of his team let him down. That is significant to me. If he can come within a horse's ass hair of winning against one of the elite teams in the league on the road, he can certainly do the same thing against another good team at home. Watson's trademark elusiveness is currently solving Houston's biggest problem on offense, which is pass protection. It's very reminiscent to Russell Wilson in Seattle back when their offense was clicking at full efficiency. Even though they couldn't pass protect, and they still can't pass protect, Wilson's mobility made up the difference and their offense still worked. It still functioned. That's what we saw in New England last week. The Texans couldn't pass protect, but Watson's mobility made up the difference and it just worked. It sounds like Will Fuller will also be back for this game, so the receiving core is starting to get healthy again for once. The tight ends are healthy again. Overall, it just looks like this offense finally might be becoming something respectable, which if they can pair that with their notoriously lethal defense, that has the makings of a very good football team. So in short, don't be surprised if the Titans win this game because they're a great team in their own right, but I think Deshaun Watson is the difference here, and the Texans will get this win at home. Moving on, we have another fantastic divisional matchup. We got the Steelers going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And I gotta say this, I got a lot of shit in the first 2 weeks that I did these picks because I kept picking against the Ravens. I even did a breakdown about the Ravens defense to prove that I didn't just hate the team for no reason, but that I truly had good reasons to pick against them and that their defense played out of their minds to cover their deficiencies. And you know what? I still got a lot of shit for those picks. So then what happened right after that? I finally caved into the masses and picked the Ravens, and all the issues that I've talked about before finally came up, and they got annihilated by the Jaguars. The issues I saw never went away. The defense finally just didn't have a perfect game to bail them out. Brandon Williams being out of this game certainly didn't help either, but even if he was healthy, they still would not have won this game. Not even close. The Ravens have serious, legitimate problems on offense, and Marshall Yanda being gone for the year will only make those problems worse. They have no number one receiver, their running game has no bell cow, their quarterback has been erratic. Nothing is working for this team on offense unless their defense can give them short fields with turnovers, and until they prove otherwise, I can't pick them against the Steelers. And don't get me wrong here, the Steelers have problems too, but they aren't nearly as egregious as everything going on in Baltimore. Ramon Foster is banged up, Marcus Gilbert's banged up, they aren't super healthy either, but at the same time, they still have names like Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Ben Roethlisberger to lean on while the Ravens do not. That is the difference here. Can Baltimore's defense have another incredible performance and win this game all by themselves? Sure, it's possible, they've already done it twice, but I find that possibility to be less likely than the alternative, which is the Steelers' offense making just enough plays to win this game. So put me down for Pittsburgh. They're going to start the year 3-1 while Baltimore loses 2 straight. Next game, we have yet another AFC divisional battle with the Bengals going to Cleveland. And I mean, these are both winless teams. It's a fight for the bottom of not only the AFC North, but also the entire NFL. All that being said though, I'm still going to go with Cleveland here yet again. Eventually I'm going to be right in picking them. It seems like it happens every week where I pick the Browns and they lose, but eventually they're going to win one of these games, and playing against the winless Bengals is probably one of the best chances they're going to get. Myles Garrett is finally practicing again, and if he gets back on the field this Sunday against the terrible Cincy offensive line, I think he would have an opportunity to feast in this game. Now, the score in this game could really go either way here because neither team is very good, but put me down for the upside of the Browns' young talent finally getting their first win of the year at home. Now, moving on to Detroit taking on Minnesota in Minnesota. Man, I took my shot last week. I called the Lions beating the Falcons with a last-minute comeback, like they always do, and a stupid, ridiculous rule took away the possibility of that happening. I thought I had it. I really thought I called it. I was getting ready to be so obnoxious all over Twitter. And this is a team that just finds a way to win against all the odds. But unfortunately, they didn't get a chance to run one last play to make that happen because of that dumb 10-second runoff after the Golden Tate touchdown was overturned. And by the way, I'm a Golden Tate fantasy owner too, so I'm extra bitter about that whole stupid frickin' game, if you couldn't tell already. I'll get over it eventually, but it's probably going to take a while. But anyway, I digress. I think the Lions will win this game. They're a great team with a great quarterback, and they just find ways to win, like I said. Frankly speaking, I don't trust Case Keenum to repeat his performance from last week. I've watched a lot of him over the years as a Texans fan that also gets a lot of Rams games in my local market, and I'm telling you, if there's anything I know about Case Keenum, it's that for every spectacular game he plays, he's got just as many terrible games coming down the pipeline. He's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a great one either. It's all peaks and all valleys with him, and I feel like this game will be one of his valleys. So in short, the Lions go 3-1 this week, while the Vikings fall to a still very respectable 2-2 without either one of their starting quarterbacks. Alright, let's get into LA going to Dallas. This Rams offense looks damn good. Sean McVay has them firing on all cylinders this year, and of course their personnel is much different than it was in years past, so it's not like coaching is the only difference, but it is a major one. I feel like all that weaponry, Gurley, Watkins, Woods, Kupp, Everett, Higbee, all of them are combining with an offensive line that is playing much, much better than last year, and it's just making life so easy for Jared Goff right now. He's got time to go through his reads, his run game is starting to give him more reasonable and manageable third downs, and overall the rhythm of the offense is just so improved. They are an actual fun team to watch now, which I could not say at all last year under Jeff Fisher, or maybe any year under Jeff Fisher. And don't get me wrong, the Cowboys are a good team too, I don't want to leave them completely out of this, but I feel like if this game starts turning into a shootout, I like all the Rams weapons more than I like the Cowboys weapons. If Dallas wants to win this game, they need to get Zeke going early and they need to win the time of possession battle in a big way. Because if they give Sean McVay too many possessions to figure their defense out, he will find a way to shred them, and I don't think the Cowboys want this game to be a track meet. They don't win track meets, they win wrestling matches. At the end of the day, though, I think LA does turn this game into a track meet, and they come out with the win to become one of the, I guess you can call them surprise 3-1 teams in the league. And speaking of surprise teams, that brings me to Buffalo going to Atlanta. And I'll say this, Atlanta really got away with one last week. They did. But they're still an elite team in my eyes, and they're still undefeated because they are an elite team. They're hosting a surprisingly formidable Bills squad this week that is punching way above their weight so far this season, and this is probably going to be a good fight that I think Atlanta will ultimately win. The Bills defense has been playing out of their minds in the first 3 weeks. Sean McDermott has them playing with urgency, and they're all flying to the ball, but they haven't seen anything like what the Falcons can bring to the table yet. The speed, the versatility, the explosiveness, I mean, they can score on anyone, and similar to the last game I talked about, they can turn any game into a track meet. The Bills are not built to win track meets, so I think they're going to lose here and drop to 2-2, while the Falcons stay undefeated. Next up, we got Philly going to play the Chargers in LA. The Eagles and Chargers are completely polar opposite teams to me. Philly wins close games and executes in the fourth quarter, while the Chargers always collapse in the fourth quarter. It's actually kind of amazing how often the Chargers have collapsed late in the last 3 years. Like, as soon as the game is on the line, they just can't wait to find new and interesting ways to lose them. I like their talent, I like their quarterback, I just don't trust the Chargers to win, and especially not against a good Eagles team that is built to close out games with their front seven. Eagles move to 3-1, Chargers to 0-4. Moving on, we got another divisional showdown between the Niners and the Cardinals in Arizona. I genuinely do not know who is going to win this game. Both teams have looked both great and terrible at different times, and I don't know which version of each team to believe yet. Do the Niners have a good defense or not? Do the Cardinals have a good offense or not? I seriously don't know yet, so I'm just going to go with the team that has the home field advantage, and I'm giving this one to the Cardinals. I need a larger sample size to figure these teams out because the inconsistency is just telling me nothing right now. Next up, we got the Giants traveling to Tampa Bay. The Bucs got banged up last week. I mean, really banged up. The majority of their defense got hurt in week 3 against the Vikings, which probably contributed to the Case Keenum show being so successful in the first place. Quan Alexander and Levante David still aren't practicing, which is massive because they're a great linebacker tandem that covers a lot of ground in their zone coverages. and most of their starting 11 on defense that are practicing are still not 100%. That's very hard to deal with, and it's going to be even harder as the season goes on because Tampa does not have a bye week. They could not afford to be unhealthy this year, and now they already are after just 2 games. The Giants, meanwhile, just can't get out of their own way. They had the Eagles on the ropes and let Carson Wentz go right back down the field and set up a game-winning field goal. But in the fourth quarter of that game, they did show enough life for me to think that their season isn't quite dead yet. Odell Beckham's return sparked something in this offense, and with them going up against a battered and bruised Bucs defense, I think they have a shot to put up some points and win this game. They have to win one eventually, and this week makes sense to me for them to finally get it done. Now, moving on, we have yet another divisional matchup. The Raiders going to Denver to take on the Broncos. Denver got punked last week, and Oakland also coincidentally got punked last week. These are 2 division rivals that are both expected to make the playoffs, and they're both trying to redeem themselves after embarrassing losses on national television. The Broncos, though, luckily have the advantage of trying to get that redemption in front of their home crowd, while the Raiders have to play their 3rd road game in 4 weeks. That is rough. I'm going with the Broncos to win here, but it's not just because they're the home team, but because personnel-wise, they match up very well with the Raiders. That Oakland offense runs through Derek Carr and his wide receivers, and the Denver defense is full of pass rushers and really good corners that can limit those receivers. They've split the series down the middle for the last 2 seasons, and I expect that trend to continue this year. Denver gets their home win, Oakland gets their own home win later in the year, and if they get the opportunity, they can settle it once and for all in the playoffs. At least for me, the diehard football fan that I am, I would absolutely love to see that game in January. Any playoff game at all between 2 teams from the same division is always awesome, and there is few playoff matchups from 2 divisional rivals that I would want more than Oakland and Denver. So fingers crossed that we get it. You know what game I don't want to see though? The Colts taking on the Seahawks in primetime on Sunday night. I mean, if you can find a less inspiring Sunday night football game on the schedule this year, please let me know what it is because I think this one takes the cake. These 2 teams are the worst and second worst in the league in terms of percentage of drives ending in 3 and outs. The Seahawks can't run block and they can't pass protect, and the Colts offense is entirely relying on the athleticism of Jacoby Brissett to make big plays for them in the red zone. These teams are pretty much the same thing right now. They're not pretty, they're barely functional, but they've dealt with it. But they have both managed to squeak out a 3-point win by the skin of their teeth against other bottom-feeding teams, and they're both trying to work through their shortcomings to get back to 500. In my estimation, eventually the Seahawks offense will probably get better because they always tend to turn it on later in the season, and eventually the Colts offense will probably be better because Andrew Luck will be back. But for now, neither of these teams can reliably put points on the board for one reason or another. Whether it's an inexperienced offensive line or an inexperienced quarterback, they both have obstacles. All that being said though, somebody has to win, and the Seahawks defense far outclasses the Colts defense, and they're at home, so I'm giving them the win here. I think the Legion of Boom will be the difference here unless Malik Hooker just has the game of his life for the Colts, which is not out of the realm of possibility, it's just unlikely. But yeah, mark me down for the Seahawks to go 2-2 while the Colts fall to 1-3. And that brings us to the last game of the week, Washington traveling to Kansas City. Right now, the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. They're about as close as we have to a consensus number 1, to be honest. They have beat the crap out of both bad teams and great teams, and nobody's been able to slow them down offensively at all. Nobody. I consider Washington to also be a good team, but if you want to topple the best team in the league in their own house, you need to play basically a perfect game, and I don't see that happening. Until Kansas City gives me a reason to doubt them or their momentum, I will not pick against them. Flat out. So with that, there you have it. There's all my picks for week 4. Hopefully I do a lot better this week than I did in week 3, although it really wouldn't take much to do better than I did in week 3. But yeah, there's a few upset opportunities this week. There's a few high-level matchups between likely playoff teams. I'm looking forward to it. We got a pretty good slate of games. Other than the Colts and Seahawks game infecting my Sunday Night Football, it's a pretty good slate. I'm really liking it. I think we're going to get a lot of good games this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. So let me know in the comments if you agree, if you disagree. Give me your own picks. Maybe you guys have been keeping track of all your picks throughout the season. Let me know if you're doing better than my season record. I wouldn't be surprised if you are because week 3 killed me. But yeah, let me know. I will be back next week with a full film room episode. I'm not sure what the subject will be yet. I'm going to see what happens in this weekend's games. But if you have any suggestions while you're watching games, if there's a particular player or a team or a scheme or a concept or anything that you see that you want me to break down, hit me up on Twitter at Brett Coleman and let me know, and maybe I'll get to it this week. So until then, later.